Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Janelle Pitt, and I am the president of Researchers and Critical Educators here on campus. R.A.C.E is also how the organization is also known by the acronym, and no, it's not an organization that simply focuses on race. We are an interdisciplinary organization comprised of faculty, staff, and administrators, as exemplified by our panelists here, and we're brought together by our common commitment to diversity. Today, we'll be having a panel discussion entitled, What is Privilege? We're getting started a little bit before 12, just to allow time for me to kind of just give a welcome and thank you, and to kind of lay out the context. Please feel free to help yourself to refreshments. Okay, is everybody seated in an area where you have a half slip on a colored piece of paper? It might be blue or orange or white, but at the top of the little half slip, it reads privilege at the top. Does everybody have a half slip? Okay, and if you don't, you want to make sure that you get one. All right, and while people might define and think about privilege in a variety of different ways, this half slip is just providing us with the framework in which the conversation will be occurring today. So I just wanted to point out a few key points. So in terms of our dialogue, we're suggesting that panel accrues from the access one has based on one's membership in a socially dominant group. And however, what makes that particular passport to being heard privilege is the degree to which that access is denied to others. Privilege creates a yawning divide in levels of income, wealth, dignity, safety, health, and general quality of life. Another key aspect that we're suggesting in terms of the framework is that this idea of privilege and how one experiences it, it just is there, okay? It requires no intentional activity, and it tends to engender a bit of obliviousness. Johnson, 2001, suggested that privilege isn't just a problem for those who don't have it, because privilege is always in relation to others. Because one person's access and opportunity are at someone else's expense, everything that is done to maintain it, however passive, results in deprivation for another. So again, that's the context in which the conversation will be occurring. I'll turn the floor over to Johnny Conley, who will be moderating this forum.
Thank you, Dr. Pitt. Again, welcome. My name is Johnny Conley. I'm a liberal studies academic advisor here on campus. Been on campus a little more than a year now. And like Dr. Pitt had said about the format, there'll be 3 questions for the panelists. Panelists have some warnings. We have a 1 minute and 30-minute warning just for sake of time. I know we'll be concluding this event in an hour. So at this point, I want to have the panelists introduce themselves.
I am Dr. Dawn Lewis in the Department of Kinesiology. I've been at Fresno State since 2006.
Hello, my name is Juan Carlos Gonzalez. I'm a faculty member in the School of Education, Ed Research and Administration, and I've been here for 5 years.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Monique Bell. I'm a member of the Marketing Department in the Craig School of Business, and I am brand new to Fresno, just having joined in August.
I'm Brittany Grice. I'm the Institutional Compliance Administrator. My office is based in Human Resources, and I've been here not quite 2 years, kind of a summer.
Hi everybody, I'm Jim Marshall. I'm the Associate Dean of the Kremen School of Education and Human Development, and also the Director of the Doctoral Program in Educational Leadership. And I hate to say it, but I've been here 23 years.
Yeah, we'll start with Dr. Marshall. We're going to get right into the questioning. The first question is, in thinking about all of the ways in which you identify, either past or present, please share with us a time when you experienced having privilege, and in the same manner, not having privilege in relation to those identities. And this question is 3 to 4 minutes.
Thank you. Like I said, I'm Jim Marshall. I'm a white, straight, Christian, able-bodied male. I embody privilege. But I also think I'm a minority in that I think I recognize that, but I know that others of my similar demographic don't recognize it in themselves. Case in point, an example. Just recently, in fact, it was an example that was highlighted in the article that Dr. Pitt gave us. Actually, I experienced the very same thing. Within the last month, I was in one of our local retail establishments, actually called Marshall's, uniquely enough. But I was walking in the door, and as I was walking in the door, the security alarm went off, and there was a gentleman walking out the door. And as I came in, one of the employees ran by me out the front door to stop the gentleman, and he ended up asking him to look through his bag, compare his receipt, and everything. This gentleman, he was wearing a hoodie, a red hoodie, jeans. Interestingly enough, I knew him. He was a neighbor of mine. But nevertheless, I went in, shopped. I came back, I finished shopping, purchased what I was going to get, and then I walked out the door, and the alarm went off again. And so I stopped, and I turned and looked over my shoulder, and the same man who ran out the door to stop the other gentleman to search his bag and everything, he waved to me like this. Go ahead, go ahead. And right then, I recognized that was because of white privilege, because that gentleman was African American. He was a male, he was straight, like me. I know him, he lives 5 doors down from me in my neighborhood. He's a lawyer in town. So I know the gentleman well. But the difference is, I had my Fresno State hoodie on and jeans. I was dressed the same way. We were very similar in many attributes, except for skin color. I believe he was asked to, have his bag searched because of white privilege. Because of white privilege. That is one example of many. And I recognize that now, but I'll tell you, and I've experienced that privilege all of my life. But I didn't know I was experiencing it all of my life. It took many, many years before I recognized that privilege that I have. As a male, as a Caucasian, as a Christian, all of those characteristics. And I also know, though, in interacting with others like myself, that recognition is not widely spread. People don't recognize it, like Dr. Pitt indicated. It's kind of invisible, in a way, to those individuals. Thank you.
So I too obviously hold white privilege. As far as the groups I identify with, I identify as a woman. I'm heterosexual. I come from Redondo Beach, an incredibly privileged area down just outside of LA. I'm a lawyer by education and from a former life, and I'll actually get into that as far as, when I've seen privilege, culminate in experiences where people are marginalized. I think it's best for me to just give a little bit of a timeline. I also identify as an athlete. I was a college athlete. I'm 6'3", you can't tell because I'm sitting down. That's pretty tall for a woman. There's only a couple other people on campus, I think, that even come close. And I found my identity in college sports. I was the tall girl my whole life. I went to college, and it's funny because I always thought I was so progressive. I had lesbian teammates, lots of teammates that embodied different versions of femininity. I was so concerned about, even though I wanted equality for my teammates at the time, wrongheadedly, I was so concerned about people labeling me as a dyke or calling me a lesbian, saying slurs to me during games. And I used to do things like paint my nails. I used to try to, fend myself up. It took me a long time to realize that I'm just contributing to that marginalization, and I'm not honoring their identities. I used to pass. I didn't have anyone make comments about me possibly, being an XY versus an XX chromosome, and just so many comments that were hateful. And I was just so thrilled when I didn't get that sort of adverse comment directed, disgusting comment directed towards me during games. I then went into litigation after I went to law school, and you start out in law, if you start out in civil litigation, then when you're an associate as a first year, you make the same salary as the male. So I was like, great, you know, this is equitable, this is awesome. But as you all are probably well aware, the field of law is one of the most, it's an old white boys club, needless to, I guess, putting it mildly. I remember sitting